But it was one of those things which Gus was so lucky because we shot the exterior scenes first, and the kidnapping took place in Indianapolis during one of the worst snowstorms in history in Indianapolis, in Indiana.
But given that we're making, a movie, changes have to be made. So can you just talk about, especially in relation to your character, what some of those changes might be and how that still respects the real life events that occur?
You mean the licenses we took with the script?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't have to. The story is so extraordinary that we really didn't have to take many licenses. My character's based on a real guy, and I met with the kids who shared with me the details of everything that happened that day of the kidnapping, and we were pretty faithful to the story. Yeah, sure, there were bits and pieces that we tweaked, but for the most part, what you see is what happened.
And I keep hearing it's an absurd story.
It's totally crazy. I mean, it's one of those things where you, like Dog Day Afternoon, which Al did as well, obviously, where you think, how is this guy possibly going to get away with robbing this bank in Brooklyn, And so it's one of those stories that I'm amazed no one's told it until now,
I want to also ask, throughout the whole process, before, during filming, after, what was the most surprising challenge that you faced on the production?
I didn't have any, Russ. I really didn't. I mean, the weather was pretty cold. Shooting, I've never shot in that kind of a cold before. Maybe that was the biggest challenge, stopping your teeth from chattering while you're saying your dialogue. It was like 11 degrees out there. But it was one of those things which Gus was so lucky because we shot the exterior scenes first, and the kidnapping took place in Indianapolis during one of the worst snowstorms in history in Indianapolis, in Indiana. And it very rarely snows in Louisville in the month that we were there. And overnight, we had one of the worst snowstorms in Louisville history. And Gus came out and went, yeah, I talked to him, and here we are. I mean, we couldn't have recreated the snow. We couldn't have done it. So.
My last question, if I may, is an off-topic one. But the Saw franchise means the world to me. I love it deeply. And so I was so sad to miss that screening last year. That was the 20-year. But it is now in new hands, that entire series, and James Wan is going to be coming back and doing stuff for it. And is that something you would ever want to work with him in any capacity?
I mean, I love James. If they want to bring Dr. Gordon back, that's a decision above my pay grade, Russ.
Hey, but as long as you'll be there for it.
For sure, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, sir, and I look forward to this movie. With this film, it's obviously based on a real-life story, but it is a movie, so you do have to take liberties to create an entertaining film. So can you talk about the balance of taking those liberties while also respecting what actually happened in real life?
Well, one of the ways the less you know about the original story, the better maybe it is for you to make your own piece. Although the original story was usually much more interesting than things we were making up. So it's always a blend of real life affecting the cinema life. For the actors, it meant a lot to know who they were playing. There was a lot of information about these characters. Maybe less about maybe the police that were involved, but I'm used to doing it. It's like all the films I've made have elements of reality that you're based, the real story and you're interpreting it as a drama.
Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to it.
Thank you.
You are a fictional character in the movie, and you didn't necessarily do too much research going in because of that. But from what you do know, how can you say, how does this movie balance being a true story while also taking the liberties it needs to take to be a movie?
Yeah. I think Gus did something really cool with this, the way he uses the real footage from the time, from the documentary. He also does some really cool shot-for-shot matchy sort of stuff. But I think the thing that really makes it his own is the edit. There was so much more comedy in this movie than we expected. Well, let me not speak for anyone else, but than I expected there to be. So yeah, I think that, and of course some costume decisions. My character in and of itself is creative license that he's taking. But I would say tonally, this is very Gus.
Now, when it comes to your experience on the film, what would you say was the most surprising challenge you came across at any point in the process that you just didn't necessarily expect?
I'd never been to Kentucky in January, and it was so cold you could hardly see. It was really cold, which was perfect for the film because it was supposed to be cold. There was actually snow on the ground in the documentary. We were like, oh my god, how are we going to get snow on the ground? And there was snow on the ground when we got there. So, oh my god, Cary. I love Cary. Yeah, the cold was hard.
Now, my first question, it's obviously it's a story based on a true story. But given that it's a movie, you have to change things, you have to do some original stuff in there. So from your perspective and your role in it, can you just talk about what some of those changes were and how the film is still, respects everything that happened in real life, but, is trying to get out an entertaining movie as well?
For sure. I think one of the things that's really important about this film is that this is a true story that actually did happen. And even though a lot of people who have seen it thus far at various festivals, even though we're getting all this praise and stuff, one of the things that keeps coming up from a lot of people is the absurdity of it all. And it is absurd. But I think the most absurd thing of it all is that it actually happened. And so there is for me, the big challenge was you have to have, in any film, you have to have some levity. And so I really tried to find that dark humor in with my character. Playing Bill Skarsgård's brother, Jimmy Kiritsis. I come in a little bit into the film to try to help figure things out, but I don't have a clue what I'm doing. The character doesn't either. And so one really great thing is we had a ton of source material with this being a real thing. So I actually got to watch, footage of Jimmy's speech patterns and the way he looked and the way he moved. And while I think in real life, me and Bill are both taller than both characters, the fact that mine and Bill's heights are about the same, that's how we can make it work. So I think that's like where you have to come up with a little bit of change. Very rarely in film does someone look exactly like the person anyways. But I think that's how we were able to make that kind of change, but still deliver the performances that get the message across and this true story, get it out there and get it told.
Last question for you. When it comes to the whole process, what do you feel was the most surprising challenge that you came across that maybe you just didn't expect or even think about would be something to worry?
So for me, one of my things as a trained actor and as someone who's done this for a long time, I always try to transform. I don't look like this in the film. I don't look like this in most things that I do, which that's what I always go for. Is I try to fully immerse myself in the role, from look to voice, everything. Obviously, as you can tell by this voice, I'm from Louisville originally, which is where we filmed, even though I live in LA. So those types of changes are always a challenge. I think one of the biggest challenges, though, anytime you're dealing with elements, it's always hard. And sometimes we were shooting scenes at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when it's 5 degrees outside. And that's difficult, for anybody. But one thing I will say is that this, I can't speak more highly of this crew, this cast, Gus especially. Nobody complained. Everybody dug in. Everybody did their best work, and you can see that on camera.
Can you talk about how, the changes that this story does have to make for the movie that wasn't necessarily the case in real life, and how that pertains to your experience on the film?
Well, I'm not an expert on what the changes are. I'm briefly aware of the real story, and I watched some of the documentary. My character is Al Pacino's wife. I'm Mabel, the mother of the boy who gets kidnapped. So I think what I loved about this was, first of all, the Dog Day Afternoon kind of Easter egg of the whole thing, with Al being part of it. And the second thing was my long relationship with Gus Van Sant. So it was really fun. I have a cameo in the movie. Gus said, look, I really love it if you could do this. You'll be playing Al Pacino's wife. I said, I don't care if I'm doing catering. I mean, it was. I want to be there. Yeah, they shot the whole movie in Kentucky, and Al and I spent one day together, and we know each other. We're friends. And here in LA, shooting our part, and it was just. it's a master class to work with Al, and to been, always to work with Gus. He's a ninja master director, and then working with Al as an actor. I feel like my technique, everything, just like all of it, it just grew and grew. But I feel like also there's something with Luigi Mangione and the sort of here, we're looking for this folk hero, and yet these are bad guys. And the movie does the same thing. And this Tony Kiritsis is sort of a hero and a monster at the same time.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in that moment. We're looking for that person, but also we have to be aware that there's a real dark side of that, of what that entails, that kind of folk hero.
Yeah.
So,
Well, last question for you is just, I know you were on it for such a short amount of time, so that could make this answer tricky, or this question tricky. But within that small scope of time, what would you say was the most surprising challenge you faced, even in just your day there?
The whole thing was so much fun. It didn't feel challenging. I guess to find, I have a very underwritten part, to sort of find a reason to be there and kind of make it, I have a presence for a character that isn't really written. It's sort of, I think it might even say wife, although my name is Mabel. So it was just sort of to find myself, to find a way to be a presence. And, Al and I just improvised a lot. They used some of that and some of they didn't use. But again, that was just, I learned so much from him. I had so much fun with him. That was why I was there, to support the film. And the film is, I've already seen it, it's amazing. It's really great.
Well, thank you so much, and again, congratulations on the movie. It was great talking to you. What is that balance of, where you took liberties, because it is a film and that has to happen to make that, but then compare it to the real story and that balance of making sure you still respected everything that did happen?
Yeah, I think, I come from a love of history class. That was the one I excelled in more than any other subject in school, but doing that research was a lot of fun, to have a menu to choose from of these nuggets of that character talked like that, and this character lived this way. Those are things that inspire the creative. But then also another quote that I go back to that another director had told me was, Austin, I'm going to wean you off of the facts and bring you closer to the truth. And that phrase kind of instilled within me the confidence to veer from the nuts and bolts facts and figures into telling the story that I think is hopefully going to be as richly entertaining as it needs to be, in the theater, without it being too much of a book report. But I think also hopefully still holds respect to the core ethos of what happened on the day.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the whole process of bringing this movie to life, for you, what was the most surprising challenge that you faced? I mean, you just didn't expect.
Well, I would say how long it took, but in my mind, I was like, when I finish this first draft and start sending it out, everyone's going to fall over themselves to want to make this. But no, it took about 5 years. But in the grand scheme of movies, that's not that long.
But we got here.
Yeah. So I think there was a lot of arduous times where, I was working day jobs 4 days a week doing, manual labor and just barely making rent. And I never lost faith that this script deserved to be a movie, but there were lots of times where I did question, is it ever gonna get made? So that was the hardest part of it. I mean, the actual meat and potatoes of opening up Final Draft and writing it and rewriting, being in a room with Gus Van Sant and Bill Skarsgård and Dacre Montgomery and hearing them, bounce ideas around and come up with alt lines together, and then hearing them rehearse with Al Pacino, all of that's the fun part. That's the fun work. It's the waiting that's the hard part.
Yeah.